You don't need a black belt. Self-defense is not a sport or an activity. It is self-preservation. Self-preservation depends on your ability to perform simple tasks under extraordinary conditions. To do that, you need the plan plus decide plus act equals survival, or PDAS formula. The 60-minute self-defense for the people program gives you that plan, tells you when to decide, and then shows you how to act. In the end, you survive. It's that simple. In just 60 minutes, you will have a clear understanding of what you need to survive and escape from even the most determined, violent attacker. The 60-minute self-defense for the people program will give you the tools you need. Simply watch the video and implement the drills and mind-setting techniques on your worksheets. You only need to go through the drills a handful of times. These drills, combined with your natural will to survive, will give you that power in your greatest time of need. At the Self-Defense Company, self-defense is not a lifetime endeavor. It is a necessary life skill. We hope that you are never placed in a life or death situation, but if you are, you will have the knowledge and the skill to survive and get home safe. Thank you for taking the time to consider the Self-Defense Company's 60-minute self-defense for the people. Together, we will make our communities safe.
And thank you for coming back to In Your Defense with Daniel Cothron. Today I have two guests with me. It's a little bit different. If you don't mind, can you introduce yourselves?
My name is Christopher.
And I'm Sensei Marc Hicks. And we're at Five Dragons Karate, located in Haverhill, Massachusetts.
All right, nice. Tell us a little bit about your system here.
Okay, so Five Dragons Karate, we generally call our style Go Ryu Karate Do, which basically translates into way of Five Dragons Karate. Generally, my history is I started out when I was a kid back in Gary, Indiana, under Tadashi Yamashita, studying Okinawan Shorin-ryu. I trained at International Judo and Karate in Gary, Indiana. Unfortunately, the school had a fire, so it closed up. But then when I was in the Army, I did some training with fellow soldiers. And then after moving out to Massachusetts, I started doing Kyokushin karate. So primarily my styles are Okinawan Shorin-ryu and Kyokushin karate. But I consider myself a martial artist. I don't just study one style. I look at all forms of martial arts. I believe if you can't learn from fellow martial artists, then you're not a martial artist. So it's not so much a mix mash of styles. It's just what works the best, for our techniques. We do a lot of striking, kicks, punches, takedowns. I'm not so much a ground fighter, but with the takedowns, I do teach my students to back off. Listen, you don't want a ground fight, a ground fighter. You don't want a knife fight, a knife fighter. These things. But basically, when it comes to self-defense with us, it's whatever works. If you yell at the person and they stop, mazel tov, you threw the world's greatest self-defense technique.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If the person comes at you and you get them with a quick jab to the face and they go down, you threw the world's greatest self-defense technique. Actually, I do tell my students, I said, unfortunately, I have been in street fights. I've had a knife in my face, a gun in my face. Not saying I'm the greatest martial artist in the world, but from what I learned as a child, it helped protect me. I trained hard, so that muscle memory is there. And I tell people, I said, the last street fight I had was back in 1985. I was in high school. I had my headphones on. I'm walking around, at night, because I love walking in the night air. And two guys were running up behind me. But I say the thing is, I always had the volume down low, so I could hear them coming behind me. I turned around and went, "What's up?" They froze. "Oh, nothing," and left. So we train smarter,
right? Yeah,
smarter.
Absolutely. So a lot of times, just being your number one self-defense is just being aware and showing confidence in your abilities.
Yeah.
A lot of times, deterrence is the best self-defense.
Right.
So with your style, what is the thing? Like, every styles have something that sets them apart. Like we mentioned before, Aikido, a lot of people, that's like there's not many strikes involved. It's more tossing and tumbling. That's it's set apart by that. In karate, I'm actually a black belt in Wado-Ryu karate.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a little familiar with the Okinawa stuff. Okinawa is where that came from as well. What sets your style apart from the others?
I would say, even though I am a traditional martial artist, you might look at our style more like a street self-defense. One of the things I teach my students, every time I touch my opponent, I should hurt them. In other words, our blocks are strikes, or strikes are blocks. So if I have to block somebody, I should have hurt them with that block. We also teach, we're not trying to throw 50 techniques. We're not trying to fight for 20 minutes. I go, a street fight should last no more than 10 seconds because you'll get tired. You'll make a mistake. They may have friends who come and help them. So I go, within the first 3 techniques, you should have pretty much ended the fight. But also, too, one of the things that's different with us is we'll break down the technique. Like I said, if somebody attacks your head, upper rising block, punch, throw a front kick. But then I go, how many steps to that technique? And my students will say 1, because it's not block, punch, kick. It's block, punch, kick. You should flow it. You should try to make it one move as much as possible. Also, too, what I teach my students is a street fight, you're not going to do what you do in the dojo. Nobody's going to attack you like you're attacked in the dojo because we're martial artists. We're trained to move a certain way. The guy on the street could be drunk. They could be angry. It's so many different situations. So what we teach is you want to block, shock the brain, hurt them, put them down, get away. So you're not, somebody pulled a knife on me, so I have to do step 1, 2, 3. No, you do whatever it takes. Listen, if you can grab a stick, keep them away from you, you do that. And I tell people, I said, just because you're a martial artist does not make you invincible. Okay. That's like comparing a soldier. I'm an Army veteran. We train for combat, but guess what? People still get shot. We're training not to get shot, but it can happen. Just like martial artists, people go into the martial arts for whatever reason. If they go in for self-defense, they think, oh, well, I'm a martial artist. I'm a black belt. Nobody's going to hurt me. Wrong. Anything can happen, Right.
I'm glad you brought that up because I started into martial arts very young. One of my when I say very young, it was like maybe 13. Someone who I looked up to was Jean-Claude Van Damme. As somebody, I watched his movies. I loved him. He was my model. And then, I like Steven Seagal, but he wasn't as, as cool looking as, So, but, as I got older, I got into MMA and did the cage fighting stuff. And then I got into the bail bonds industry and did bounty hunting. And I realized really quick that dropping down in a horse stance and doing corkscrew punches didn't really help me out in the real world. So, so I'm glad you brought that up because, training in a dojo and then training for like a real life encounter, that aggression, that act of violence towards you changes your mindset. No matter how much training you've done in a dojo, it really does affect your psyche. What do you think about that?
Oh, definitely. I teach it all the time to all my students. I go, listen, I got into karate because when I was 7 years old, I'm at the drive-in with one of my big brothers, and I'm watching Bruce Lee fight Chuck Norris in the Roman Coliseum. This was in the 70s. And I was like, wow, this is something different. Next thing you know, I'm doing martial arts. But I tell people, I said, when we train, I go, okay, this is Hollywood. This is reality. I said, it's a big difference. And one of the things I try to express to my students is, yes, in the dojo, we do techniques and we practice. It's not so so much you perfect the technique as you're teaching your body to react. Because, on the street, one of the things, you try to do a wrist grab, now you're talking about your hand, your palm's sweaty, your opponent's sweaty because of adrenaline. So when you go for that wrist grab and your hand slips, if you stand there and go, oh, what now? You've lost. So I think, and like I said, I respect any martial art that is real. And I try to teach my students, I say, okay, like Aikido gets a bad rep because they watch the demonstrations and the guys walking around and flipping everybody and they're just falling. But I go, you got to understand though, Aikido, there are some real dangerous techniques. If you don't learn how to fall properly, you're going to end up with a bunch of broken bones. So yeah, if you watch, this one guy and he's just walking around and everybody's falling, you're missing what's really going on. It's like, yeah, good wrist lock. You better go with it or you're going to end up with a broken wrist. So what I teach is we train to get hit as well as hit, but I also try to teach my students, you have to have a mental concept of what you're doing. You can't just, I go, this ain't a Steven Seagal movie. I'm not breaking someone's arm, because they, swore at me on the middle of the street, even like when we teach defense against a weapon, I go, some people have the idea, oh, I took the gun from the person. Now I'm going to shoot them. I'm like, you're going to prison. You just committed murder. Smart move. We do knife defense. And I go, yeah, I take the knife from the person, but I'm not going to stab them, because now I'm the bad guy. So,
mention toolbox.
Yeah. So we have a saying, have a full toolbox. So in other words, you think of martial arts like a toolbox. So you've got kicks, you've got punches. The more you have in your toolbox, if your front kick doesn't work, pull out your roundhouse kick, pull out your straight punch, pull out your short punch. The more you learn, the better. And I think one of the great things about now is we have the internet, so you can make those connections with legit martial artists, learn different techniques. Mr. Chris, for instance, when he's joined my dojo, he came from basically falls.
Shinrai Jiu-Jitsu.
Right. So he never really studied striking.
Never started out.
But we'll do a technique and he'll fall. And at first, he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I go, no. I go, did it work? I go, so, if you took the person down this way and it still worked, congratulations. I said, the ultimate goal is you want to go home safe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now we also train, katas, and I tell students, because there's an argument, what's the point of doing katas? I'm like, kata is exercise. You're training your brain for memorization, muscle memory. You're strengthening your stances. I said, obviously on the street, I'm not jumping into, a front leaning stance, or a wide, horse stance, but I go, my legs are stronger. So if I actually, have to square off with somebody, I've got a good stance. So, and we're working conditioning.
A lot of conditioning.
The mental aspects of martial arts. The only thing I haven't mastered is my chi yet. I can't knock somebody across a room from 50 feet away, but
that's enough.
I feel you with that. I used to, when I was younger, I used to get into that whole the chi stuff, and I was really hoping that I would be able to do that. Yeah. And the last video that I had, I was talking about this exactly. I'm going to bring up Jean-Claude Van Damme again. My favorite movie, Bloodsport.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So he has all these bricks laid out, and he has to punch through them, but he only can break the last one. And I was like, man, that was so cool. I got to learn me something, and Tai Chi is what I thought it was. So no, I was wrong. It didn't work.
No. But actually, it's kind of funny you mentioned it, because like I said, once again, you figure I'm growing up in the 70s, the 80s. So I was in high school when The Last Dragon came out. I don't know if you've ever seen it. So, of course, at the end, Bruce Leroy gets the glow because he realizes he's the master. But actually, one of my students, he goes, yeah, I joined karate because I thought I would get the glow. And I'm like, no, that doesn't happen. But, like I said, with Chris, Mr. Chris, he joined with me. It was more for the mental aspect of it. And I tell people, I said, if you want to be a fighter, train to be a fighter, but know the basics. If you want to get that inner peace, learn the basics, So our saying is we want a perfect balance of mind, body, and spirit. my goal is not to make you a black belt. I'm like, I can get you a black belt in your first class, and here you go, you're a black belt. I go, and unfortunately, there are places that do stuff like that.
Right.
But I go, what I'm trying to do is make you better than when you first walk through the door. Because, and also too, I said, I'm not going to have you out on the street and something happens and you're totally not prepared. I'm like, you're not going to win every fight, but, hopefully you'll fare better than if you didn't have the knowledge.
To me, it's not to win. It's survival.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, like I said, when I was in the Army, this was the late 80s, I was stationed out of Fort Carson, Colorado. And we used to go to Denver almost on every other week, compete in tournaments, just for the fun of it. And actually, I tell my students all the time, I go, I met guys who were like, yeah, I've been doing martial arts for 20 something years and I've never been hit. And I'm like, wow.
Well, so, you're good.
Yeah. I go, so your first class, as a white belt, nobody can touch you. I'm like, okay. But then you also get the guys who go, yeah, somebody came at me on the street, but they didn't attack like they do in the dojo.
Right.
And you look and go, yeah. They go, and this technique didn't work. I'm like, yeah. So what I try to do is get my students to understand the martial arts, not just learn the movements, not just, be repetitive.
Yeah.
It's like, understand what you're doing. We do weapons. The traditional Okinawan weapons. And I go, I'm not just going to put a bow in your hand. You're going to understand why this weapon works better against this one. Right. And also, too, I go, it's not so much who's the master or who has the most, it's who reacts the fastest. One of the things I'll do is I'll have like commas and give, another person a bow. And I go, who has the advantage? And now my students go, well, whoever has the most knowledge, because I understand the way a bow works. I understand the way commas work. So now I know if the person moves this way, this is the best way to defend them.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not just blind learning.
Right. And a lot of people who, I talk a lot about the difference between self-defense training and traditional art training. There's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to the difference between the two.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes from parents putting kids into karate, thinking that's going to give them self-defense. It really does help build their character a little bit, as far as self-defense goes. And it's what we teach in our system, is that the mindset for a child, and for anybody really, but the mindset of that child, understanding that he's not going to be able, little Johnny's not going to be able to beat up big old guy who just got out of prison. He's just not going to be able to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what was that movie? Three Ninjas. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen. I mean,
I've seen them all.
Yeah. And my kids, when they were younger, they used to watch Three Ninjas, but also too, I'm like, okay, so this little kid, like the littlest one who liked to eat everything, I'm like, he's actually taking out a 25-year-old grown man.
Yeah, that's Tum Tum.
Yeah, Tum Tum, yeah.
He knows.
I go, seriously. I mean, of course, it's fun to watch, and I even like. What's sad is you get that mindset, especially when it comes to like extreme martial arts. You get the traditionalist who goes, well, that sucks. It's totally useless. And then you get the extreme martial arts. It's like, well, that's so old and boring. But I go, if you really look at it, it's the same. It's just extreme martial arts just takes it to the next level. That's like, being a figure skater. Of course, every kid who, takes skating is not going to the Olympics.
Right.
But I say you should understand what's going on. And I go, I enjoy it. Listen, my wife goes nuts because, hey, I'll watch Best of the Best.
I love that one.
Yes, of course. Master of the Flying Guillotine. Give me a weekend. I would just find anyone. And the worse it is, the better. The most low budget martial arts movies, I'm all in it. But I also know, this is reality. This is fake. And, when you get the parents, like perfect example, I always get the parents come in and we got a tournament coming up. And the first thing they do is like, yeah, we watched the Karate Kid for the first time. And I go, Ralph Macchio or Jaden Smith, you know? And then I go, listen, I wish karate tournaments were that exciting. I said, first of all, your kid's not going to be fighting bare knuckle. There's not a school out there that's going to try to take out your kid's leg, put him in a body bag or nothing like that. I said, so, you know, yeah, like you were saying, how people just think, oh, my kid's going to suddenly become, you know, a master and be able to defend against everybody. Goes, no, you need to understand. I said, there's limitations. I'm like, you know, I tell people, I said, I'm not a boxer, but, you know, if I hit Mike Tyson just right, you know, in the button, maybe I could knock him out. I said, then I'm moving out of the country. You know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we actually talk about in our system target points. Like we don't talk about pressure points. We talk about soft targets. You know, fighting is the last point you want to be in. Like you want to avoid, you want to escape, and then at the last resort, if you can't do the other two, fight your way out of it. Yes. But ultimately just get out of it, and just like Chris said earlier, survive. I use this, I think I used this in the last video too, but if you put some meat in between two tigers, one tiger's really hungry and the other one just ate, you know, one of them's going to get hurt, one of them's going to, you know, probably not survive. Absolutely. Yeah. But you know, earlier before we started recording, Chris mentioned the mental health stuff. I'd like for you to touch upon that. What do you have for me with that?
As far as the mental health, I think we all got some screws loose anyway, right? So my temper, always ready to fight. You know, I grew up in Boston, Roxbury. Kind of a hard area in the 70s for a white boy to be down there. So I was fighting every day. It was either learn or you can't catch me at 50 yards. You learn how to run fast. And actually came out of, I wouldn't call it, I would say adult treatment center and to help me for mental health. And found this guy walking out of a 7-Eleven with a 5 Dragons t-shirt on. Walked up on him and thought he was going to lay me out for a second. Next day, wife brought me in, and I've been here for what, 4 years, 5 years?
Oh, about three
and a half years. Yeah. And it's been doing wonders for my mental health. It's better than therapy. I mean, I could skip therapy and come down here and practice and hit the bag, you know, and just go away at it. And it does amazing things for mental health for me as an individual.
Right, I got you. So you're speaking from your personal experience, and I can kind of agree with that as well from my personal experience with, you know, being in anything really, but like I said, I started like maybe 13. I really can't remember because when I was that little, I don't remember how old I was. But I started really young doing traditional martial arts with Wado Ryu. And I feel that if I didn't do that so young, based on, you know, the dynamics of my surroundings, I could have possibly been going down a troubled path. So I definitely see how that could help anyone's mental health for sure.
Definitely with the mental health. I mean, like, I think I might be pronouncing it. Is it Kai Shinrai Jiu-Jitsu?
I'm not sure how to pronounce anything. I'm from the South. We don't say anything right.
Quarters. It's close quarters. You got Ippon Sienag, all your throws, your grappling, your arm bars, your wrist locks, everything right there. Your falls. Which saved my life. And then, like Sensei said, this was my first striking art because he noticed that I like to go in close and grab. You know, so right now, when I first started, it was difficult for me to figure out the front snap kick or the shuffle side kick or the roundhouse kick. It was all new to me. And it basically just changed my whole world around. And what I like about Sensei and 5 Dragons is that he doesn't keep it limited to just to that style. He says, Chris, do your wrist locks, do your throws if you can get in there, add the front snap kick. So basically just combine everything and make it work and go home. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
what,
Nice. So you said you've been doing it for, did you say 5 years, or was it 3 or 5 years?
About 3 years.
Yeah.
What would Goju, right?
Yeah, I didn't think about
Kyokushin,
yeah, a little mix.
Mixed it, yeah.
So like, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, what was your first class like? How would you feel about it?
I was nervous, but Sensei could automatically tell that I took something in the past, judging by my front snap kick and my roundhouse kick, and I picked up the blocks, your basic blocks, really fast. But more nervous than anything, really nervous.
And what was like promoting up, from white belt to getting up the ranks? How was that?
I think very difficult. Didn't you give me a wrong test at one time?
Yeah. So it was kind of funny because like our system is white, orange, blue, yellow, green, brown, then black. So he was going for his like white belt to orange belt. And the test was supposed to be not easy, but we want to challenge our students so they really appreciate the rank. And so like near the end of the test, my sons and I looked at each other, go, we're kind of giving them a test close to black belt here. Like, maybe we kind of overdid it.
Yeah.
But what we also try to teach the students is you're not doing it for the belt. You're doing it for the knowledge. So that group who went through that test, I'm like, wow, you really impressed me.
Exceeded. Yeah.
You exceeded our expectations and everything. And like, how does it feel? Like when, Mr. Chris here, he's like, I don't want to go. I'm like, listen, I'm the sensei. I invite you to test. Like the way we do it is just because you've come to so many classes, you're not going to automatically test. I invite you to test because if you don't have the knowledge, what's the point?
Well, I mean, that's where the mental health comes in with the self-confidence and everything else. Because I'll tell you right now, my self-confidence went from 0 to 100 starting off with Sensei Marc.
Nice.
And actually, too, part of his progression, because he was so nervous, I'm like, Chris, go in there and stretch the kids out. Chris, teach them up a rising block. And at first, he's like, I'm like, Chris, do you know how to throw a block? And he's like, yes. I'm like, well, then teach them. I go, the idea is you're getting what's here to there. It's not cookie cutter. It's not going to be easy. You're going to make mistakes, but guess what? Just correct it.
And be more and always learn how to be comfortable in an uncomfortable position. So like if I'm on the bottom and I can't breathe and I'm getting choked out, relax. Learn how to be comfortable in those uncomfortable positions.
Right.
One thing for me.
Absolutely. So in y'all style, one of the things that's really hard in any style, it doesn't matter if it's a style or if it's somebody just training for MMA in their backyard because they watch Chuck Liddell do his thing. One of the hardest things to train someone is the SNS, that nervous system reaction that your body gets in that moment that you're going to be attacked.
Right.
Like you don't know you're going to be attacked and everything's chill. You're, living life. And then out of nowhere, someone blindsides you and wants to mug you. Your nervous system goes haywire. You start freaking out initially. You don't know what to do.
Right.
Your vision starts to narrow. Your hearing starts to go away. Your blood from all your limbs starts to rush to the most vital organs. Training that for anybody is really hard unless you put them in that thing. So how close to reality can y'all get without really being reality?
We definitely get let's say I can push charges on him. That's how aggressive. That's how we push. I mean, we really take hits. I rub Tiger Balm. I got stacks of Tiger Balm at the house.
But a couple of quick examples of what I try to do is a few years ago, I had one of my students. She actually moved out to the area, so she doesn't train here anymore. But she's a lawyer, 40-year-old, divorced, mother of two. She was actually working a property case. And the other lawyer started getting aggressive to the point where he actually rushed her, pinned her against the wall, brought his hand back, was going to punch her, and she hit him, dropped in the stands. And, fortunately, some other guys who were in the room grabbed the guy. And she called me. She goes, Sensei, everything you said happened. I watch his body language. I teach my students. I go, yeah, situational awareness. When you go to the mall, look at people, see who would be an easier target. I go, in this day and age, most people are doing this, looking at their phone.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So I go, honestly, really look at the body language of people. I go, listen, even if you're scared, if your head is down and your back is slumped over, you look weak. I said, but if your head is up, you're making eye contact, looking at people, you're less likely to be a victim.
For me, I scan the area before I walk. I mean, I'm very hypervigilant. So if I'm walking down the street, I already scanned the place. I mean, it's situational awareness. And that's one thing that Sensei always try to teach me to teach the kids. You can't have your head on the phone. And today I'm scared for the kids for that.
Yeah, I agree. I've got kids, and my daughter, she has a phone, and we teach a kids program. It's called the Family Safe program. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure y'all have programs that's similar to it. But like I was saying before, a lot of parents will take their kids to a traditional martial arts school and expect them to be able to teach them self-defense, and they're punching and kicking and all that stuff. And that's great for if they're defending themselves against other kids their size or a little bit older, maybe. Yeah. But when in reality, criminals, they want to pick somebody who is smaller, weaker, someone who's alone and distracted and stuff like that. And when it comes to kids, those phones do distract them, and they are weaker.
Boy.
Very bad. One of the things I teach my students, and I use real examples, like when everybody was into that Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
They're walking down the streets trying to catch Pokemon on their phone. I'm coming to the dojo one day, and a kid, and I go, because I'm constantly scanning there, I'm driving my car, getting ready to park. The kid is looking at his phone, rode his bike out into the intersection, but I was at a completely dead stop. He was literally in front of my car before he realized what he had done. And I go, if I wasn't paying attention, I would have hit this kid. So I go, you need to do this. I go, how important is a phone call? And this is from the littlest kid to to an adult. I go, seriously, how important is that call? I said, you got to pay attention to what's going on around you. I said, that's your first line of defense. I go, because if you're walking down the street and for some reason this person is making you nervous, cross the street. If they try to cut you off, you run the other way.
Avoid.
Yeah. I said, there's avoidance. And I go, especially with kids. And, even with the kids, I go, how many times have you seen in the store, the kid drops to the ground, the parents dragging them, they're kicking their feet, screaming, whatever. I said, that kid just became dead weight. I said, so, somebody grabs you, scream, hey, you're not my mom, you're not my dad, become dead weight. Because that perp doesn't want to be there for 30 seconds. They want to grab you.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, I can't remember, this might have been 2 recordings ago, I had someone who's a Leo, and they were talking about the statistics of criminals and all that stuff. But one of the things that I remember through my studies of it is, that criminals, they don't want to be hurt. They don't want to be identified, and they don't want to be caught. So if you can manipulate those fears that they have, you can definitely increase your chances of survival. I'm going to ask you some questions on, and I know, like I said before, I like to wing this. I'm going to ask you some questions that's kind of going across the web, and I'm going to try not to say any names.
Do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. We don't care about that.
There's a guy from Chicago that's like meme city all over the internet where he's teaching people self-defense, and people are making fun of him because he's basically doing these disarms, and it's like, come on, dude, you're going to get people killed. You know who I'm talking about?
I think I do. Now, you said he's from Chicago? Because I know
Detroit.
Detroit, yes. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Oh, you're talking about
yes, I know.
He's got the earpiece.
Yeah. So
funny though.
So what's funny is because one of the things we do before classes start, we'll sit there and we'll watch. And sometimes I go, oh my God. But one of the things I teach my students, we'll do knife defense. And of course, we'll do the basic. If somebody swings at you like this, I said, but what are the chances somebody's coming at you with a Friday the 13th stab? Okay. So what I try to do to build my students, reaction is like, okay, we'll do some basics. And then I go, okay, now you're going to come in like this. And, how many times did you get stabbed?
5.
Yeah.
5,
And they go, wow. I go, listen, you go into your head. I'm going to get shot. I'm going to get stabbed. So that way that weapon's not that scary. Now, there is sometimes I look at the guy from Detroit and I'm like, okay, that's a little silly. But actually one video, he was trying to do something and the guy resisted and got away from him. And I go, in all honesty, sometimes on the street, that's exactly what's going to happen. If you could do it perfectly every time,
kudos,
great. But you know what? Sometimes things happen. So we train for that oopsie because, somebody will try to do something, go like, oh my God, they pulled away from it. I'm like, why'd you stop? Now you're done.
Right.
So, but yeah, there are some people out there that's like, what are you doing? And then there's some people it's like, okay, it could work within reason. But like I said, I respect anybody who's really doing the work, really putting in knowledge. But the guy from Detroit, I like him.
He's a funny dude. I mean, funny, yeah.
Okay. 1 second. I'm actually on the clock. I work security outside of this as a supervisor, and somebody messaged me, so I didn't want y'all to think I was being rude, not listening. I was listening.
No, don't worry.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah, I like the guy for one reason and one reason only. I don't like what he's teaching, but I do like that he says that at the end, this will increase your survivability.
Right.
He's basically saying that do something is better than not doing anything.
Right.
Which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
I can actually back that up. So back when I was in the Army, so we're talking like 1987. I forget it was a Black Belt magazine or whatever, but the experts all of a sudden started saying, if a woman's being assaulted, just give the guy a condom. So you don't catch anything. Right? Just let him do whatever. And I go, are you kidding me? Wow. What happened was some woman did that, and the guy, his defense was it was consensual because she handed me a condom.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. And then there was a lady, the guy attacked her, and he had a history of assault, but she was a black belt in Taekwondo. Beat the heck out of him.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
his defense was, if I knew she was a black belt, I wouldn't have attacked her. And would you believe this was going back and forth in court from like 1987 until about 1993?
Wow.
And finally, a judge had the common sense of like, you're an idiot.
Go away.
You're going to jail.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, these experts only go, well, you got a 90% chance of survival if you fight. And it's like, yes. Obviously, I tell my students, look, if the guy wants your wallet, throw your wallet that way. When they look for it, run.
Okay? Yeah.
But
that's what I was
you don't engage unless you absolutely have to.
Right. Again, goes back to those three things: avoid, escape, and then fight your way through if you have to.
Yeah.
So I'd like to wing these things. I run out of stuff to talk about sometimes.
We can talk about anything.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like to discuss is one of your top three things when it comes to teaching people self-defense. What is the three things that you look for in teaching them? Or let me rephrase that. What's the top three things you look for into a student?
Okay.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's good. First, someone who's eager to learn. You want that person because you want that person who's open-minded. That's why I try not to say you can only do it this way. I have a saying, I teach you a way, not the way. One of the things we'll do is like, we'll do 5 different head attacks, 5 different wrist grabs. And then I'll go, okay, your partner attacks you, defend.
Right.
And then people realize, oh, all of a sudden I'm doing something other than what I just repeated.
Right.
So that open-mindedness. I also like people who are energetic about the martial arts. You know how it is. I mean, you study, you get that one person who's just sitting there and they're doing blocks like this.
Oh yeah, I don't want to cut you off, but you reminded me when I was in the ranks of the colored belts there.
Yeah.
We used to have this one guy, and I hope he's watching. I know he's not, but we'd be doing stretches, right? So we'd do the butterfly thing where you put your feet together, you're sitting on your butt, you put your elbows on your knees, and you're stretching. And then you start rocking back and forth, and he would fart every time. Every time. I think he was attempting it. And we wore white gis. So I was like, man, if he gets up,
it's gonna be brown. Those things happen, right?
But I think that the last thing, well, one of the other things I look for in a student is just that kind of drive, not so much me pushing them, but them pushing themselves. Like another saying I have is, we will push you to push yourself to be the best. I go, listen, I can't make you a black belt, and people look at me, and this is literally from our first meeting. When they come in, sit in the office, we're going over the program. I go, I can't make you a black belt. I don't have that power. And they're looking, I go, I can teach you what you need to do to achieve your black belt, but ultimately, hey, 2-mile run with some, wind sprints, that's on you.
Right. Yeah.
Learning the katas, that's on you. And I go, back in my day, we had a book with the picture of the guy doing Taikyoka each, step by step. I said, now you can go on YouTube. I said, but if you don't do it outside the dojo, if you don't practice, you're not going to achieve. So, and it's actually been very successful for me, especially with the kids, because, like I said, you've been in the martial arts as well. You see somebody, they go, oh yeah, I used to take karate or whatever. I got my black belt and then I quit. And I'm like, why'd you quit?
That's the beginning.
Right.
You've done all that work. Now you've achieved the black belt, which isn't the goal. It's the next step. I'm like, when I got my black belt, I was like, wow, I'm a black belt. Yeah. But then I'm like, I want more.
That's what right now he said. I told him, I don't want my black belt. He says, you don't have a choice.
Yeah. Because I know, it's his confidence. If he fit, if I go, okay, Chris, you don't test for a black belt, he's not going to push himself to the next level. But if he tests, and even if he fails the test, is he going to be hungry to come back? I've had a student, she failed her junior black belt test, came back a year later and blew everybody away. And
right.
Like, fantastic. I'm like, that's what I was looking for. So I think probably if you break it down, most of the stuff we look for is more mental and spiritual, like what's in the heart.
Right.
I go, listen, if you could do, jumping, flying, side kick, 3 backflips, congratulations. But I go, in reality, are you going to do that on the street or in a tournament?
Well, I mean, my fair sensei is the students now are different. They're like, the kids are different. It's a different breed of kids now. It's like push-ups, for example. I can't get kids to do a right push-up the right way. I'm like, we were doing this, but maybe because we were playing in dirt back in the day, or to having rock fights. That's what we did.
You're
so
right.
It's kind of different for the children nowadays, and he's really trying to teach me to have the patience with that because I'm not getting it. Why? What's going on with the children nowadays? Right.
Yeah. So I like I said, I have kids, and for a while I was homeschooling them.
Yeah.
So I understand.
Yeah. So I went from, kindergarten to 3rd grade with it. And the hardest part of doing that, and you talk about mental health, man, I was losing it. It was the kindergarten stuff, you know, teaching
Yeah.
them the simplest basic stuff was really hard. But as soon as they understood that, and as soon as they got that, man, they started taking off like, you know, they were soaring. They were flying through it.
Yeah.
See, myself, I've been in some real brawls, and I've been stabbed. Damn near been shot. So for me, it's all about survival. So I was always hyper vigilant as a child. So when I met Sensei Marc coming out of 7-Eleven, he got in a fighting stance, and I did, and all I wanted to do was just go, "Excuse me, sir, is it okay if you know what 5 Dragons a T-shirt?" And he was like, I'm the sensei. I was like, "Oh," because he was about to knock me out, and that's how we met. So after that, I mean, it's been me throwing kicks and my head. I mean, I don't have to go see therapy. I skip therapy once a week now because of this, because of the dojo. If it wasn't for Sensei Marc, he doesn't know he saved life, but he did. Because I can be honest with you, and I'm out there, I have some real problems, and all I gotta do, not only is he a sensei, I can call him anytime I want if I want to talk. If I want to go by his house and sit down with his family and have a dinner, I can do that. So I call him my big brother. You know what? And that's what it is right there to me.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. If y'all only had 30 seconds to tell the people about who y'all are, what y'all about, and how to contact y'all, you don't have just 30 seconds. You have, take your time. But yeah, just let the people know how to contact y'all or what y'all are about.
Yeah,
he's the man. So.
All right, so like I said, what we're about is we're looking for a perfect balance of mind, body, and spirit. I want to push you to push yourself to be the best. Not worrying about you becoming a black belt, but I want you to be able to one day go, yeah, now I'm Dr. So-and-so. You know, I've been very blessed. I have students who've been training with me since they were 3.5 years old, and they're in college now. So basically, 5 Dragons Karate, we teach realistic martial arts. We do have fun. We're family fun, family run. And we can be reached at www.5dk.biz, B-I-Z. That's 5dk.biz. And like I said, my ultimate goal is to just not so much blend martial arts, but just learn martial arts. I admire so many different martial artists: Michael Jai White, Scott Atkins, Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal. And I want to teach people to observe, not just learn, but understand.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, you good? All right.
Go ahead, Chris.
The other thing I do appreciate about Sensei Marc is we do, because I have seen the beginning of the video before this, you pressure test everything. I think it's a must to pressure test everything, because it's going to be a fact when you get out there, it's going to be ugly out there. It's nice in a dojo.
Yeah. But that just reminded me. So Chris was with me. I bought like a couple airsoft guns, some pellet guns, you know, and I'll sit there and I'll go, okay, aim the gun at me, and I'll do a technique, and I go, when I move, fire. And, you know, my students sit there and go like, wow, you're so fast. I go, it's not so much fast, it's just cutting the angle. Right. So when you pull the trigger, it doesn't hit me. I go, I'd rather get shot here than here, you know.
There's that 30 seconds. And, oh, by the way, everybody says I look like I'm Van Damme, so I get that all the time.
All right, guys. Well, hey, it was good having you on. I enjoyed the conversation. If there's anything that you'd like the people to know that you haven't said now, what would it be?
I don't know, just, you know, be healthy, be happy, be safe. God bless whatever you believe in. And also too, you know, try to check us out. You know, 5 Dragons Karate, Haverhill, Massachusetts. I have my own YouTube channel, Marc's Planet. I throw different things on there. different self-defense techniques. And also, too, I'm the type of sensei, I'm the type of martial artist. Hey, if you see some fault in my technique or, hey, respectfully.
Yep, I like that.
Talk to me. And I go, I want to learn. I don't call myself a master or anything. I go, the coolest thing about martial arts is it's constantly evolving.
Right.
The way I trained in the 70s
is different now.
It's different from the 80s, the 90s. I mean, let's face fact. Inspirations for me, it was Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris in the 70s. 80s, you had Van Damme, Seagal.
He knows.
Yeah, that's my guys.
90s, you got these guys. Now you got people like Scott Adkins, Michael Jai White. It's like, and I just hope people see the martial arts for what they are. It's not just a sport; it's a way of life.
It is. It is.
Absolutely. Absolutely, guys. It was great having you on. Maybe we can do this again sometime. I will leave a link in.
But yeah, he's still there.
It's a mistake on me. I'm a rookie, apparently. I'm just going to say what I said.
I was getting into the video.
We'll start it again.
Yeah. Quick for me. I'm going to end it on this. If it wasn't for this man, I'm going to be honest, I'd be 6 feet under. Yeah.
I am honored to be able to.
And I'm saying it live on YouTube.
And also, thank you so much. I had a great time. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, it was good having you on. Y'all have a good day. Stay safe. God bless.
Stay in touch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, great.
All right, have a good one.
You
Bye,
too.
Dragons.
The goal is not to win, but it's not to lose. Self-defense equals self-preservation. All you need to do is prolong the assault, create an opening to escape. Do not expect to become instant ninja in 4 lessons or even 40 lessons. Just be difficult enough to make the would-be assailant pick someone else. What you should expect from this program is, number 1, the understanding of what is in your control and how to become a tough target. It means you have to develop a plan, decrease your exposure, decrease your vulnerability, recognize when you're about to make an unnecessary risk, and you pay attention to your instincts. Number 2, how to use technology to increase your survivability. Number 3, basic strikes, gouges, and of course biting. Remember, empty hand techniques always come last. The order of importance is, number 1, avoidance. Number 2, technology. And number 3, empty hand. Remember, empty hand, no matter how romantic it is the lowest rung on the ladder of self-defense and close combat.
Right, so to watch people literally go from nothing to, I mean, you're talking 25 hours of training total, to being lethal, to get home to their family, man, there's nothing that touches that.
Well, I think it's really important for people to understand, just basic self-defense. And that's what I like about this. It can get a lot more complicated as you go along, with the movements, but the fundamental basic things anybody can do.
Well, there you go, guys. That is my interview with those guys. If you have anything, I'm going to leave a link in the description below for them. Also, I'll leave a link in the description for the self-defense company stuff. If you have any comments, questions, and concerns, please leave them. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and don't forget that notification bell. You have a good day. Stay safe. God bless, and we'll see you next time.